that you choose the positivist research philosophy, okay, that use deductive research approach. So pragmatism allows you also to do experiment. So again, your friend here, you can use realism or pragmatism will do because it allows you to do experiment, survey. Okay? And if the research strategy, if you want to do case study, then you can have a mixed methodology with qualitative. Okay? And then there are realism over here. So realism is at the very here. Okay? And then under realism, the analysis or the approach can be done grounded theory. You have to do, again, of all these experiments, you have to do cross-sectional. So what is cross-sectional? You only collect the data once. Somewhere, somehow, among the years. Okay? And if you plan to do qualitative interviewing, again, another ones. That's it. You can call it, it's just a complementary method, so you only take it once. You are not going to do longitudinal. Longitudinal means you collect year 1, year 2, year 3 until you submit. Okay? And then you have ethnography research. Okay, now moving to the quadrant of qualitative. Okay? And then there will be action research, quite famous now. And then there will be an inductive approach. It means you are doing it qualitatively. And then interpretism will be the research philosophy. Okay. Sampling, secondary data observation, interviews, questionnaire, that will follow which method. If you use survey, there will be sampling, secondary data or observation, and then if you do the qualitative interviewing, and then etc. etc. Okay. So make sure that you choose the right philosophy. Okay? So you have a choice between realism or pragmatism. I think pragmatism is quite okay as well because they say pragmatism you can do experiment. Okay, you can mix. Okay. Qualitative research sampling. Even though only quant people talk about sampling, in qualitative we do have sampling as well. At the end of the day, we have limited time frame, limited capacity to cater everyone, right? So sampling helps us to do a much quicker way of doing research. Number one, the purposive sampling. So researchers seeks out elements that meet specific criteria. So you select the people with purpose. Okay, why do you select this individual? Because he is the IT person who deals with design, blah blah blah. And if somebody say, then that will be bias. Of course, for that reason, I have to accept bias because he or she is the only person that is knowledgeable in this matter. Not choosing them, it means I will miss the main point. I will miss the important element. Number two, snowballing or snowball sampling technique. Researcher relies on participant referrals to recruit new participants. So you only do 2%. And when you have done your interview, you ask them, would you mind, suggesting other people that you think can be very helpful for us to conduct our study? Rather than to just, rely on information which you will never know or a data list which you will never know. Now you, after conducting the in-depth interviews, you ask the person. Don't worry, your AJK, the committee members will email it to you, provided you give the email to them. Okay? The slide. So last but not least will be quota technique. So researchers selects cases from within several different subgroups. So you identify who you want to pick on a certain criteria which resemble your quota. There's only 3 types of sampling techniques. And we don't do any systematic sampling, whatever, what else? Scientific sampling whatsoever. So our sampling is very simple. This is the simple analogy. If you see on the bigger picture, there are like people with red color, pink color, orange and green clothes. But I want to purposely only select the one in green. Okay? So if you you ask me why, because I said the one in greens are the one that is 100% involved in the process. They are the knowledgeable people. I don't want to waste my time, so only greens. So purpose. So it depends on your context. Who are you going to interview? In your case, HR only. You don't want to speak with assistant HR because crisis management is only going to be dealt by the senior HR. So senior HR it is. Okay. Next one will be the snowballing. You know snowball? You start out with a very small ball of snow, and then you roll it up, it will become bigger and bigger and bigger. So imagine from one person that you interviewed or 2% that you interviewed, they will recommend you several others. Or 1% or 3% recommend you several others. Through recommendation, we call it snowball. So when you do the presentation, you say, yes, I'm going to use snowballing. At this moment, I have known 2 key individuals who are known for or very knowledgeable of the subject matter. What I plan to do or what I strategize later on to ask him or her to suggest me some other people, or from that particular second layer of person or respondent will suggest another person. Where to stop, when to stop, I will let you know. Quota sampling. Let's say you have a population 1,500 elderly living in Taman U. Let's say there are 1,500 people, elders. And then you find out from the list or the statistics, 1,000 of them are females, 500 are males. So when you design, you have to make sure that they represent each other. Say that you cannot take 50 females because there are 1,000 of them. So of course you have to take 100 females. So that the males, only 10% of them that is males. So that is what we call it quota. Beyond that, you are not going to include. Okay? So now I'm going to show you the cross-sectional study. What does it mean by cross-sectional? As if that you cut a slice of cakes, secret recipe cakes, right? They have multiple layers, right? I hope that when you cut that cross-sectional cake, you will get the whole piece of cake, the whole slice, from top until bottom. Because if I were to ask you, how does, chocolate indulgence taste like? I don't want you to evaluate the upper part only because you only receive a small bit of it. I want you to evaluate the whole piece, from top to bottom. So my studies was competence acquisition of management accounting trainees, a case study. So I have a representative purposely selected trainees cohort 1, trainees cohort 2, trainees cohort 3, trainees cohort 4, and then here is their, what do you call it there? Assistant training manager and training manager. These people which I interviewed in my case study will talk about how competence can be acquired in the case study of Rolls-Royce. Okay. So if I miss out any of the cohort of the trainees, I will miss out the important element that may be left unattended by any of the trainees that I have missed out. So in other words, quantitative, they use sampling, bigger sampling size, because they want to make a big statement or a generalization. So you have to do more than 30, hundreds of them, depending on how much population that you have, and then you have to do it arithmetically or looking at the Frenchet and Morgan table to decide what would be your ideal sample size so that your claim or your statement can be generalized, right? But for qualitative, because we are looking relatively small, there wasn't any magic number. There isn't any magic number. How many is enough? Okay. But one particular qualitative research, that is phenomenography, they only look minimum 6 people interviewed up to 10. Why? That is the most difficult level of qualitative analysis, and it requires very, very long and in-depth analysis. So 6 and 10, between that numbers is fine. Anything that is more beside phenomenography, you looking into like roughly between 15 to 20-ish, okay, 25 maybe max is that interviews. And normally we have a rule thumb that say once we hear similar element has been talked about, it is time for you to stop your interview. When there is, what do you call it, thematic data saturation. Okay? So data saturation varies from one study to another. It depends on your subject. So for qualitative interviews only, maybe if you want to do 12, 15 will be fine. But if you have other techniques, for example, in my case, when I study these people, okay, all the trainees I had, not all, some of them I have met, you know. I've got two set of trainees, one in Bristol, UK, another one in Derby, UK. So I've got around 10 on each of the focus group discussion. It is a discussion, so it cannot allows you to go in depth, but then it gives you a quicker answer of what's going on. Then I conducted in-depth interviews with some of them. Some has been involved in the focus group, some has not. I've got around 18 in-depth interviews with trainees, followed by 2 in-depth interviews with the assistant trainees manager and training manager. Okay. But my data saturated until 18. So I've been listening about the same thing among the trainees. Nothing new. These are types of qualitative tools for collecting data. Means how can you collect qualitative data? Focus group discussion, as I said, a focus group discussion, it is a group interviews. It's not like an interview, it's just like you will be the facilitator, people will be sitting there, minimum 6, maximum 10, do not have any bigger than that because it's very difficult to steer a group discussion. You will ask one question to everyone. Okay, you have to allow each one of them to talk to and then to discuss. Because it's a group discussion, there will be a tendency of people not telling you everything. Why? Because they don't see or they don't feel like sharing with others on sensitive issues. So you have to bear in mind, when I did my focus group discussion, it is an exploratory stage. Okay, exploratory equals to qualitative tool, so focus group discussion can be done. So I throw in, I have read about competence acquisition or competence in the literature. The literature are massive, around 300 plus or 3,000 plus literature on competence. But then I need to know what is competence to the trainees of Rolls-Royce.
Actually, how many participants should involve in interviews for the qualitative method? Actually,
there's no magic number, you know, as
no, I mean minimum.
It depends. If you are doing it qualitative, again, as I said, our key thing, you have to not to do it between 6 to 10 because that requires a phenomenography analysis, phenomenography research method. So you have to go teams, you know, like 15, 18, 20. But as I said, I use combined method. So I've got 18 for my in-depth interviews, 10 for focus group, 10 for focus group, but that is considered as one finding. Okay? And then I've got qualitative interviews with the training personnel, 2 of them.
Is it possible if we use only for 5 only?
That's why it depends on your subject matter. Again, I just want to ask you, normally we go about with data saturation. If you want to do it separately, then you have to think about when to stop. You can stop when you listen. Saturated, the same thing. The answers are relatively similar, and you can stop. No point of talking to extra numbers of headmasters, for example. But if you do your survey, you will have plenty, right? So it depends, because your analysis will be at the end of the day what will be the common thing and how you want to present it. Okay. So normally 15 will will be safe above. Okay, but not reaching 30. Okay, not reaching 30. So 15, 16, 18, quite common, 18, 19, 20, okay? But again, as I told you, talking to, in one place, you will have like 3 separate things, right? So 3 separate things, I think 12, 15 can be achievable. 5 from each sector, right? That would be doable. Okay? So the focus group cannot be big. If it's bigger, it will take longer, and then it's very difficult for you to control the group, because there will be people who will be very talkative and trying to show off. That gives group pressure to the less timid respondents. So you have to eliminate any group pressure. So you have to name call them, not cold calling them, each one of them to participate. There's another one that is in-depth interviews. This is one-to-one. Okay, one-to-one means you talk to that somebody, and normally you have to have a list of questions. In-depth interviews, if you do it only one technique for your data collection, minimum interviews should be 2 hours, maximum 4. Okay, I've got one interview questions which interview respondent which lasts me 4 hours. That guy likes to talk, but when he talked, he explained very well. You know, I can get good answers from him. So we never realized that it was on a Friday. No, I can still remember the date. He's wearing jeans, brown jeans with, shabby jeans with brown shirt with jeans, all the ripped jeans, and he had curly hairs. So we talked and we clicked that well. We have the chemistry. So I feel very comfortable talking to him. He was very comfortable talking to me, and then I know that he is knowledgeable. He's a very wise guy. So we had a very long conversation. If you do it only 1.5 hours, I bet there's not much that is found. 20 minutes of your of the interview session is breaking ice session, introducing yourself, the purpose of the interviews, and so on. So you don't have much time if you were to say 1.5 hours. Most of my interviews last between 2 to 3 hours, with an exception with this one guy, it lasted until 4 hours. And that 4 hours interviews given me 32 or 48 pages of transcript later when we transcribe it. Okay? There's another way of doing this: participation observation. So for you, sir, who are looking into gangsterism, is to do or not to do will be a question. You may not be able to participate in the gangsterism activities because as a human being with high ethical manner, seeing people smash things or stealing or bullying will definitely question your ethics and integrity. So that cannot be achieved. You can, on a camouflage, or maybe like a spy, observe things, but that is what we call non-participating observation. Participating means you are playing. See? That guy who is a researcher is playing a tried instrument. Even though that he doesn't dress like one, he doesn't need to, but he participates and observing. Okay? So if you want to become a gangster, if you want to participate in a gangster group, then you have to dress like a gangster, act like a gangster, talk like a gangster, and do gangster behaviors. Right? So non-participation observation is observing others. A student of mine did a work on competency of trainee nurses in hospitals. She could not do the participation observation because of the ethics issues. Patients who are at hospitals, you cannot be close to them if you are not their family members because they have to disclose or they have to cover up the illness, the sickness and everything. So what she did was a non-participant observation, which is commendable. Commendable means good. However, the examiner on that day, on the Viva, they asked her, okay, Farah, tell me how many observations that you do and from what time? And she said, I made 4 days observation, which include several days in the morning, several days in the afternoon, several days in the late evening. And then the examiner said, why? Because sometimes in the morning, the nurse might be a new nurse coming in. Okay? And the trainees also, they are trainees. Towards the afternoon, they may have shift or the work might be escalating. And then towards the evening, when some of them are going to sign off, a new batch coming over. So I do not want to be biased. So for that, the examiner, said, good, I like that, but you have to separate that in a special chapter. Okay, because she included his subchapter or subsection of the findings. So non-participation observation can be done by you, sir. If you want to, you have to be like a spy, at night time, and then you have to describe. But again, because non-participation means you are not there, you are not doing it, you don't listen to it, it's from your views only. So you should consider several conditions or situations of gangsterism in action. So you have to elaborate your narration with your writing explanation. And that has 100% biases. Why? Because you only going to report what you see. So when Farah did hers, she compared her views from the observation, non-participant observation, with the interviews of the trainee nurses, and she can somehow find a match. Say that, oh, the trainee nurses said that they have been scolded by the senior matron or senior nurses. And then from her observation, there are several instances where individual trainee nurses were being scolded. So that match. You can also consider other techniques in collecting qualitative data. So when you talk about qualitative, you only talk about interviews only. You never think about other possible way. So there are also the famous research diaries. Another student of mine who did competence of senior women managers, we cannot apply this because women managers, top senior women managers are too busy to write a diary, even though that she bought a very nice diary with high motivational words inside that, but that is not workable. Why? People are not writing nowadays. They are texting. Right? So I think if you want to consider research diaries, maybe you can consider about making a special WhatsApp group and you communicate inside here. Okay, bear in mind, WhatsApp group, there will be another problem because of the language. So for that reason, you have to spell out with your participants, we are going to write, but no WeChat language. Like GR8. For heaven's sake, I've been like struggling of understanding what is that. That is actually great. Even LOL, I don't know last time. What is LOL? Laughing out loud. OOTD. Outfit of the day. So again, you would advise your participant to use WhatsApp group. Why this research diaries is very important? I think for that gangsterism, you can ask them to explain, to reflect. So these are a very good exercise of reflection. When people do things, they don't realize. So after doing it, for example, after beating up to death the individual person, maybe they say, oh, actually they don't have to smash the face, pity him. I broke his nose. We should not smash the face. So let other people talk about it. And you can screenshot it, email it, and analyze it as part of your data. Okay, so that we call research diaries. You don't ask the gangster to write today what did they do, because they don't feel remorse. They don't feel guilty of beating people. That is part and parcel. But you may want to ask critical questions about, if you were to be in that case, what would you do? Situational questions. And there are a lot of investigations are done by the criminal authorities or agencies to use props and images. this kind of interviewing are on like child abuse, sexually or physically being abused or mentally being abused. Children have very limitation of words. Sometimes they cannot express well, or they cannot tell you in detail whereabouts that they've been abused. So by using dolls, okay, puppets, or like storybooks, they can explain or share with you some of their inner feelings that cannot be expressed through words. Another part that you may want to consider, this is largely being done by the psychologists, people who look into the behaviors of children, for example, or criminals. They use audio and visual video recordings. So if you want to look at maybe, you know, like criminals, right? Those very heavy duty criminals, means who did like killing and etc. When they're being asked or interrogated in the interrogation room, so they carry certain behaviors that are similar among criminals. So as a behaviorist or psychologist who undertook study of criminology, they want to look at this kind of behaviors. While you know some criminals, they are fidgeting, you know, like they anything that they can tell of things that are unnecessarily. So when you do this kind of thing, there's a lot of ethical issues that you have to sign, among others the secrecy of who you interviewed, okay, and then to whom are you going to circulate the report to, because at the end of the day, criminals may purposely, you know, spike the feeling of the interrogation officer. There could be some, what do you call it, harsh behaviors, harsh words being used, so a lot of secrecy there. But a friend of mine, when I did my PhD in Loughborough University, she undertook the study on children at the age of 5 and below, so under kindergarten. So there's a special room because that kindergarten belongs to universities. All those mothers who send their kids at the university kindergartens are mostly students, mature students, are also staffs. So she had to get the consent form from all of the parents saying that she's doing a behavior studies of students socializing. So she has to be in that quiet room and then look at those students or children at the age of 5 and below, and then see how the communication takes place and etc. But because the subject matter is small kids, so she has to get consent from the parents, and she has to have some form of what you call it, application to the education minister as well. But it's doable.